If all of the males in the world came to the conclusion that they were finished with women and that they needed to figure things out on their own, it would be game over for all of them. Do you think that they would still be able to make it on their own, or do you believe that the assertion is true? Now let's dig a bit deeper into this topic in order to find the answer to this question and determine whether or not they are actually capable of standing on their own 2 feet, being strong and independent without males. On the basis of the innumerable examples I've seen in both my own life and the lives of the people around me, the women who have ended up leading lives of higher quality are almost always those who had a guy in their lives who was able to provide for them. If they both had dirt-fractured bones, then it wouldn't matter as much. It would be necessary for one of their children to make the ultimate sacrifice in order to fulfill the role of their parents' retirement plan and make the latter's remaining days on Earth as comfortable as possible. Contrast this with the situation of a woman who does not have a partner. She might have had it easier, depending on the number of children she had, if one of them had stayed behind to take care of her. In such case, she might have had it easier. If the child in question brings in a respectable sum of money each month to support and care for the woman in question, then the woman who does not have children and does not have a lot of money will be the last lady on our list. If she does not start putting money down now for her golden years, this woman is in for a life of hardship and misery. If you believe that these 304s are successful, consider the case of a single mother who did not have any children and became financially independent, or consider the case of a single woman who did not have any children and did not have a plan for retirement. You'll get a first-hand glimpse at a heartbreaking catastrophe. Through the course of my life, I've had the good fortune to come into contact with many different types of women, and let me tell you something. The majority of these women are managing their finances independently because their husbands did not make provisions for their retirement. All of these women are economically doomed because either they did not have children who grew up to be financially independent or successful, or they did not have children, yet fail to save enough money for retirement. Therefore, when your former partners leave you because they believe they can achieve greater success elsewhere and that the grass is greener on the other side, the last 40 years should speak for themselves. Almost all of these 3 women are finished by the time they are in their 60s and 70s. Hence, when we hear them declaring that they are powerful and self-sufficient, we see the career women delaying having children. I am aware of the fact that they are not considering the long term and that they require a dose of reality. This is the reason why an older woman who does not have her finances in order will start to become desperate, because if there is no man or kids, then she literally has no assured safety net for the remainder of her life. If she does not have her finances in order, an older woman will start to become desperate. Permit me to share something with you all. Observing an elderly homeless woman who has no other option but to live on the streets is among the most heartbreaking things that may happen. When you encounter an elderly woman who is without shelter, it probably means that she will receive assistance from someone or from a government body, but it almost always tells a narrative. The majority of the time, it is due to the fact that she was stubborn to the very end and believed she could have done it on her own without being subject to the supervision and power of a man. This is often what takes place as a result of the fact that a significant number of these women, particularly in today's society, would rather choose struggle than have a guy who checks her behavior and prevents her from ruining herself and the family. Over the course of my life, I have observed this to be the case with many women who find themselves in unfortunate circumstances. The use of illicit drugs, the unwise decisions that some women make regarding their own lives, or even a tragic event such as the destruction of their home can be additional factors that lead some women to wind up living on the streets. Because of this, I am an advocate of not feeling sorry for women when you see them in a difficult circumstance if it wasn't an accident out of their control. I say this because I don't think it's fair to feel sorry for someone who caused their own predicament. All too frequently, people are eager to save women just due to the fact that they are women without investigating the circumstances that led to them being in that predicament or choosing to ignore those circumstances. Men, you must have veins of ice out here in these streets. Stop feeling sorry for women who chose the battle, because I can promise you that if it were a male, you wouldn't give a damn about it. Every day, people ignore homeless individuals and walk right over them without so much as a glance in their direction. To prove to you that I'm not a hypocrite, I participate in the activity myself. When I hear about a lady who is on the verge of economic collapse, or when I see a woman who is homeless, I react in the same way. Poor baby's tale, it makes no difference to me, and I have no intention of assisting these individuals because I am aware that in 9 out of 10 cases, they brought this situation upon themselves by being disobedient and reckless. You folks must be perplexed as to how it is that I can be so callous and unfeeling. Well, I used to work for the government where I lived, and part of my job was to listen to people's tragic tales 5 days a week for an entire year. It was very difficult. When you start to hear the reasoning behind most of their stories, including why they required aid and how they got to the situation where they are, you start to pick up on patterns of human behavior and you realize that the vast majority of people are stupid. Listen up, gentlemen, and pay attention. The majority of women are in the financial predicament they are in now because of poor choices they made when they were younger, choices whose negative effects have continued to accumulate into their middle age and later years. Believe me, I've seen this scenario play out countless times before. An illustration of this would be a young woman who becomes pregnant at an early age after having sexual contact with a pookie or a ray-ray. As you all are aware, a pookie will not be able to provide for the needs of that child. The next step for this woman is to become pregnant for the first time, which will subsequently lead to her becoming a single mother of 2 children, without the assistance of the children's father. This is something that women do because they are incapable of thinking about things in the long term. And as a consequence, they find themselves in a constant state of conflict whenever they are not under to the authority of a macho man. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let me break down on a more personal level why the majority of women can't make it on their own. Let's take a step back and look at the larger picture. If men were to stop caring about women and the effect it would have on them as a result, the first thing we need to acknowledge is the fact that women have only made it this far because they have men to protect and provide for them. If men stopped caring about women and the effect it would have on them as a result, women would only have made it this far because they had men to protect and provide for them. We would not have been able to come thus far in the year 2022 if it were not for that one particular thing. Because if women disappeared, which would unquestionably and without a shadow of a doubt be the case, we would be unable to procreate. And as a result, we would have gone extinct as a species a very long time ago if not for the biological need for men to procreate with women and for women to nurture and raise the children. Men do not require the presence of women in order to live. If you take a closer look, you'll notice that women have been responsible for more damage to men on an individual level than males would have inflicted to themselves had they been left to their own ways. Persons who identify as more than 100 different genders, as well as a lack of consistency within the familial unit as a whole. Even without conducting study, it is pretty evident that the majority of single mothers are not excellent parents when one goes outside and observes the children that these mothers raise on their own. Simply step outdoors and observe the men in tippy-toe shoes and people in 304s who suffer from mental illness. That they are unfit to raise children on their own without the involvement of men should speak for itself. Thus far, we have looked at surviving and bringing up children, 2 tasks at which they are purported to excel, and so far it's a L. Therefore, let's have a look at constructing and preserving civilization. This will also be a brief point because, in my opinion, it is quite clear that the vast majority of women on the earth do not construct ish. Since the majority of women do not possess the same level of physical strength as males, it is safe to assume that the majority of them are unable to contribute to the development of society. Even if you locate a few tough women to perform the task, do you really think that they have the competence to create things the right way if males cease caring about them and walk away from the job? They do not sense all along males have been the ones engaging in this behavior. Therefore, in a building society, women are compelled to learn how to construct a home or other construction from the ground up, which sets them back years, if not decades, simply on the subject of education. To refute this claim, consider the fact that women are unable to sustain high levels of physical labor for an extended period of time. It will take a greater toll on their bodies than it would have on the bodies of a typical guy to begin to feel the effects of hard work after a given amount of time. Up next is ensuring the continued functioning of society so that people can live. Listen, I've said this before, but the only reason women have made it this far is because of what they carried in their womb. It would have been a done deal if not for the cool, moist vice grasp that the males desired. But in order for women to be powerful and self-sufficient, even in the absence of men, they require access to food, power, and clean water. In order to keep the power on, construct pipelines and purify the water so that it may be consumed by everyone. The majority of those who put their lives in danger are men. It is common knowledge that the majority of owners of medium and large commercial farms, which are responsible for providing food for the entire population, are male. In order for all of the other women who are working on other projects to be able to live and farm on a larger scale, these strong and independent women would need to learn how to construct, manage, and maintain the grid while putting their lives in danger. This would include learning how to lay the pipes and purify the water. I believe that we are able to imagine what would take place. Additionally, they would have to conduct oil drilling operations. The deal is closed. There are not a lot of women working as engineers and technicians around the world. Therefore, they would be responsible for teaching the other ladies who might or might not be interested in doing the task. The deal is closed. Guys, it takes 3 days to die without water, and if they can't get the electricity to pump the water, we haven't even considered purifying the water yet, and they'd be in big trouble if we didn't help them out of this predicament yet. This is based on the assumption that men took whatever they built, made, and were able to move, and that women were left to begin life anew on their own. If they had to figure it out on their own within a week, at least half of them would have easily been banished to the shadow realm. If they had been given assistance, however, they would have avoided this fate. It is only because males are still establishing and preserving this universe that you may hear some of them pounding their chests and acting all strong and independent. Oh, and just as an aside, since the great cough has passed, what became of the notion that women should be strong and independent? Does anyone have any idea what took place? Since the womanist movement has been relatively dormant in recent times since the beginning of the recession, all it needed was a cough with a 99% recovery rate to bring a strong and independent organization to its knees. Wow, this is truly incredible. To put it mildly, it blows my mind. If you feel that this message is correct, please subscribe. The realm of medicine is the last possible area for us to investigate at this time. Fortunately for women, there is a sufficient number of medical professionals available, including both nurses and doctors. Nevertheless, it would be difficult to independently produce all of the necessary drugs. That would result in a significant amount of debt in a relatively short amount of time. And in terms of the doctor's ability to handle the workload or seeing patients or doing procedures with the number of women who need care, it would either be short-staffed but manageable, or they would crumble under the workload. This is because of the amount of women who require treatment. Therefore, even though they could do an adequate job overall with only a tiny percentage of the population, if they were unable to teach a sufficient number of people in the allotted amount of time, there would be an unacceptable number of lives lost. I believe that we have sufficiently covered all of the topics for this video. If I were to go into all of the fields where women would have to step up and get under control, this movie would never finish, illustrating beyond a shadow of a doubt that if males stopped caring, their asses would be grass. This demonstrates to you that even now, they rely on us significantly more than they do on us. Therefore, I want you all to be aware that you are the ones that own the majority of the value in society. Therefore, you should behave as though you possess this worth. Even if a man makes less money than his woman, as long as he is able to rent and sustain himself, he will most likely have more money if she isn't a frugal person, because men typically don't need much.